Hello, DevOps people. Welcome to Full Stack Live on this nice Thursday afternoon. I had to think there for a second. Yeah, apologies for not streaming on Tuesday, which I normally do or try to do, but I simply didn't feel like it. Maybe I had too many calls and meetings already on that day, and I didn't want to keep talking, or I was simply out of energy. Who knows? Anyway, I'm back and happy to have you here. I hope you're having a great day so far. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Full Stack Live, where I'm today going to do a little bit of Ruby coding, starting day one of Advent of Code. I always wanted to do that, but I always missed the start, and then I didn't want to, or didn't have the energy to catch up. And so today I'm trying to at least get started with Advent of Code, and we'll see how far I get. Apparently it is going to get harder over time, and I'm not sure if I can put in the time every day to do my coding exercises, but it's a nice way to get into things, and that's why I thought it would be a good thing to do first thing in this stream. Welcome everyone, welcome NH Omega, thank you for sharing the stream. Happy to have you here, and happy to have all of you here. As always, let's make this an interactive show. If there's anything that you'd like to share, if you have any feedback, if you have any questions, if you have a very good dad joke that you'd like to tell us, pop into chat, and let's have a conversation instead of a 2-hour-long monologue on my side. You don't want to do that. Okay, so stream health is 100% at the moment. If there is any issue, please let me know as well. I'm very impressed by Owncast, but sometimes I'm a little bit concerned if playback health is okay all the time. Sometimes I'll see a few red numbers, but I'm not sure if these actually impact stream quality or not. So if there's anything that you see, if there's any issue that you have, let me know as well. Cranky Hayrovsky, thank you. Good to know that quality is good, okay, at the moment. And or Hal, welcome. I'll make sure not to have you open up the pod bay doors. Advent of Code. I created a repository on GitLab under the Opsitive organization. Opsitive is the DevOps community that I'm in the process of building out. You'll find it on opsitive.com. and you can join us there for free. We have a forum and we have a Discord server. And while things are still pretty quiet, I hope that it'll pick up with time. And the more you ask and share over there, the more it will get more lively. So, the Advent of Code repository is there and it's public, so you should be able to find it. It's opsitive/AOC-2022. And let's see what the actual Advent of Code puzzle looks like. This is a different interesting. Why don't I have to log in? This browser might actually be logged into GitHub, and so authentication worked. Okay. Okay, so here we are, day one. Santa's reindeer typically eat regular reindeer food, but they need a lot of magical energy, which is actually a link to a 2018 puzzle for day 25. Interesting. To deliver presents on Christmas. For that, Their favorite snack is a special type of star fruit that only grows deep in the jungle. The elves have brought you on their annual expedition to the grove where the fruit grows. To supply enough magical energy, the expedition needs to retrieve a minimum of 50 stars by December 25th. Although the elves assure you that the grove has plenty of fruit, you decide to grab any fruit you see along the way, just in case. Collect stars by solving puzzles. 2 puzzles will be made available on each day in the Advent calendar. The second puzzle is unlocked when you complete the first. Each puzzle grants 1 star. Good luck. So, in order to supply the magical energy, we have to solve 2 puzzles for 25 days, netting us 50 stars by Christmas Day. The jungle must be too overgrown and difficult to navigate in vehicles or access from the air. The elves' expedition traditionally goes on foot. As your boats approach land, the elves begin taking inventory of their supplies. One important consideration is food, in particular, the number of calories each elf is carrying, your puzzle input. The elves take turns writing down the number of calories contained by the various meals, snacks, rations, etc. that they've brought with them, 1 item per line. Each elf separates their own inventory from the previous elf's inventory, if any, by a blank line. For example, suppose the elves finish writing their items' calories and end up with the following list. So, as we can see here, elf number 1 has 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Elf number 2 has 4,000. Number 3 has 5 and 6,000, adding up to 11. Then we have elf number 4, 7, 8, and 9,000. And then we have the 5th elf that has a single food item worth 10,000 calories. That must be a huge hamburger. And in case the elves get hungry and need extra snacks, they need to know which elf to ask. They'd like to know how many calories are being carried by the elf carrying the most calories. In the example above, this is 24,000 carried by the 4th elf. That's the 7, 8, and 9,000 here. Find the elf carrying the most calories. How many total calories is that elf carrying? To play, please identify. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. The puzzle is accessible, but I still have to authenticate here. Just a second. Should only take a minute. Okay, that's that. And to begin, get your puzzle input. I'll copy this link. Let's keep this on here. And let's switch to Advent of Code. And we'll make day 1A. That's the first puzzle, and day 1B will be the next that we'll get after this. Gracious Jepson, glad to see it that you are having fun. Welcome to the stack. So that's that, and let's wait. Oh, we can always curl this. We'll call this food.txt. Oh, okay, I can't curl this without being logged in. Ah, there's a different randomized input per user. That's not bad. Okay. So then I'll copy this. And paste this here. So we have quite a bunch of elves here, and they have very different numbers of food items with various calorie values. Okay. And now we'll create a script, which I'll call nextsnack.rb. Of course, we're going to do this in Ruby. And I guess we'll need a frozen string literal. Okay, so we're going to read this file. And first I thought I'd create an elf object, and where I basically tally all the calories of each elf and then find the one with the most calories. But since we can already track the number of calories per elf while we are reading the file, this should be a little bit easier. I mean, had we to do something else with this information, then it would be worth building up some kind of a information store here, be it a hash or a series of elves which all track their own calories. But since we all only have to find the elf that has the most calories available at the moment, that's just an iterative algorithm that doesn't need almost any storage. So we can simply read the file. And I read surprisingly few files. So let me refresh my memory how to best do this. Ruby guides is always a good source, I think. So yeah, we'll open a file, then we'll be able to call read on the file handle. Okay, so read will read the whole file. Or we can read lines and remove the new lines, and we'll end up with an array. Okay. And then we'll close the file. Can also read it and then split. That has the same effect as read lines and jump. Okay. Okay, we can do a file for each. That's what I'd like to do. That's brilliant. Okay, so good thing we got that cleared up. So we are going to do a file. Wait. Why doesn't it do an auto-completion of for each here? We'll call each line item. And if the item is empty, then we've reached the end of an elves list. Which means that we go to the next elf. So like this, and then of course we'll have to reset their calories to 0. And if that's not the case, if the item is not empty, then we'll increment the current calories by the numerical value of the item. And if this elf's calories have now crossed the previous record, let's say, in having food items, then our next snack elf is this elf, and we'll have to update our max calories to the actual value that this particular elf has. And that, of course, means we need to initialize a few variables. We'll start with elf number 1 and calories of 0 and max calories of 0. And the snack elf, well, we don't have to initialize them, they'll get assigned anyway. And I guess file for each will probably close the file after we've left the loop anyway, so we don't have to do any housekeeping there. Let's see what Rubocop has to say here. Okay, there's of course the shorthand for increment, and same goes here. Okay, and then we'll output our result, which is the next elf to share is number snack elf with max calories of food items. And that should do the trick. Why is there snack elf useless? Okay, since we haven't initialized snack elf before the loop, snack elf is at the moment a local variable that we are going to lose once we leave this loop. So this output here will never work, which means we need to initialize snack elf beforehand, and I'll simply initialize it with 0, which should be an invalid result. So should we get elf 0 back, that means we have made some kind of mistake. Now let's see if this works. We're going to read food.text, that's here, and so let's do a Ruby what's called next snack.rb. That does not look right. It says elf is elf number 1. That's definitely not elf number 0, but I think we are missing the spaces between each elf. So there isn't, for this program is at the moment, there's only one elf and he has all the calories. Why is that? I mean, food.txt definitely has empty lines. Let's do a little bit of debugging output. Okay, there are our empty lines. Let's see if they get recognized. No, they don't. Why is that? Is there some kind of... Ah, I see. There are still new lines in there. So, can I do an item jump? Yeah, this time it works. And it says elf number 205 with 69,206 calories. There are 205 elves. How long is this file? Yeah, there's 2,200 lines with, yeah, about 10 items in average. So it makes sense that there are 200 elves. Okay. So let's clean up our code. We don't need this debug item, debug line anymore. And this one. So, yeah. In my case, it's elf number 205 with 69,000 calories. Now, let's see. Answer 205, right? Let's make sure we are starting out right. Ah, we don't do any debug output anymore. Okay. There is no empty item at the start. I hope. No, there isn't. Okay. Well, I guess I'll risk it. And submit 205. Oh, your answer is too low. If you're stuck, make sure you're using the full input data. There are some general tips on the About page. Okay. What went wrong? What was the question? Find the... How many total calories is that elf? Okay, that's of course the wrong answer. We'll need the actual number of calories. And that is, of course, 69,206. 205 is, of course, too low. So let's submit that. Six seconds left to wait. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Continue to part 2. By the time you calculate the answer to the elf's question, they've already realized that the elf carrying the most calories of food might eventually run out of snacks. Yeah, of course. To avoid this they can't empty them of all their snacks. To avoid this unacceptable situation, the elves would instead like to know the total calories carried by the top 3 elves carrying the most calories. That way, even if one of these elves run out of snacks, they still have 2 backups. In the example above, the top 3 elves are the 4th elf. That's always been number 1. Then the 3rd, and then the 5th. The sum of the calories carried by these 3 elves is 45,000. Find the top 3 elves carrying the most calories. How many calories are those elves carrying in total? Okay. I'll create a new directory here. That's going to be day 1B. And we'll copy everything from here to there. Let's close all buffers so we don't get confused. Okay, instead of tracking the top elf, we'll simply track the top 3 elves. I guess there are quite a few interesting approaches to do this. How are we going to do this? Okay, my idea is to basically build the equivalent of a how is that called? Give me a second. I need to find. Oh God, how do I find the word for that? Okay. I did actually guess the right name, which is a winner's pedestal or a winner's podium, where there are only 3 places on these podiums generally: the bronze, the silver, and the gold medal. And I'd like to build the equivalent to that, where if we find a new elf that has more calories than our current bronze elf, the bronze elf gets pushed off the podium and gets replaced by the newly found elf. Ooh, Hal is posting code here. Doing the puzzle in Bash. Nice. But that's definitely a great example of where to switch from shell scripting to a proper programming language. And that's exactly why most of the stuff I build in Ruby, where I do some command line things, where I need a command line solution, let's put it this way, where I need a command line solution, I'll switch to Ruby if I can't do it in a few lines of shell code. Because shell code is just so hard to read with all these delimiters and things like that. So if that you have to put a semicolon behind the square brackets that enclose a condition and things like that, or the dollar double parentheses and things like that. That makes things so hard to read. But yeah, still, it's very similar to my own solution, but in shellcode. Well done. And to get the top 3, you can now... Also, you're tracking the calories of each elf? Is that the case? Oh, you output each elf and track the record holder. Okay. Which means you can then simply do a sort and okay. That's grand. Yeah, you're doing a great job there. I wonder if I do something similar and track all elves and then do a sort and output the first 3 ones. That's definitely an approach, and that's exactly what I meant before when I said there are many ways to skin this cat. I guess I'm a little bit influenced by not having to store anything extra here, that I'd like to try this minimalistic approach for the second puzzle as well, by simply extending our single elf tracking with a 3 elf tracking. Otherwise it's pretty straightforward, I guess. Oh, let's try it. Let's try my first idea first. Is that going to be simple? I guess the interesting part would be, how do we determine if someone new goes on the pedestal and whom to push off? That would probably require us to keep our pedestals sorted and then simply add the next elf and then cut the list off at number 3 again. And that doesn't feel too different from tracking everyone and then simply taking the first 3 ones. So I think my initial idea might be quite complex to implement without any additional use. So let's track all the elves then. Had I done this in the first place, we could have simply taken the first elf for solution number 1 and then the first 3 elves for solution number 2, and we wouldn't have to do anything other than replace the number of elves that get returned. But here we are. Okay, so let's do that. We'll make calories an array. And I think that's the way to submit a default value, isn't it? Let's see. Let's go to the class definition, actually. No, that's the size. That's not what I meant. I guess we'll have to... With a block and no argument, or a single argument 0, ignores the block and returns a new empty array. That's not what I mean. With a block and argument size, returns an array of the given size. The block is called with each successive integer index. Is that so different to hashes? NH Omega, hey. And Hal, thanks for dropping by. Don't forget to follow the stream, and you'll get notified whenever I go online. Okay. Well, we'll have to do the next elf recognition anyway, so I don't have to deal with initializing the array a lot, and then that means we can simply use an empty array here. So is that poor timing or is that good timing that you are just about to leave the office? I don't want to keep you in the office. Maybe you can watch from the parking lot? Oh, so that's why there was okay. I see. You went home in the meantime. That means you don't live too far away from the office. Well, I guess we'll track calories in an array, and the index is going to be the number of the elf. So we'll actually start with elf number 0 then. We'll still track elf as an index, and we'll then use elf here to initialize their calorie counter, and then we'll add the index here. Thanks to the shorter operator here, we don't have to duplicate this in the same line. And if calories of this elf, we don't have to track this anymore, I guess. We'll have to do a little bit of post-processing, though. 6 kilometers, okay. Yeah, 15 to 60 minutes, I feel ya. It's the same here. So many times when I am on foot or on my scooter, I'm simply whooshing past cars stuck in traffic. Okay, so now we have summed up each elf's calories. I guess we'll have to initialize calories 0. Because that's not happening inside the loop. Again, I can relate. I have asthma myself, and if the air gets too cold, it's really it's going to be a struggle. Thankfully, this year it wasn't too bad so far, and One of the things I like about Ireland is that the temperatures here are so moderate. It rarely goes below 0 and it rarely goes above 25. And so I'm not sweating my ass off in the summer and not freezing my ass off in the winter. Basically, Ireland keeps my ass safe and sound. All right, so now we have an array. We'd have to sort it to get the 3 top calories, and I think we are not required to identify the elves, are we? If we are not required to identify the elves, we can simply, yeah, we can simply take the top 3 values and answer that. That's the nice thing about software engineering. You have your requirements, and if you meet them, you get paid, and otherwise people have to think about their requirements a little bit more. -10, okay. I do like a nice and crisp winter with lots of snow, so going into the Alps or something isn't something I would refuse. But I guess the thing around freezing is what annoys me the most, when basically when you only have the bad sides of winter, which is cold and wet, and there's either ice on the ground or there's sludge on the ground, and that's something I really don't like. If it's nice and cold, -5, -10, it's just a matter of dressing right. And I do love my snow hikes and things like that. Slovenia, okay. Is it hilly over there, or is it more flat in Slovenia, or where you are especially? Oh, you're breaking my heart by saying you used to get decent snow back in the day. Yeah. We might get less snow in the future. Alright, so let's get our puzzle solved then, and okay, so yeah, brilliant. So far I've spent far too little time in these southeastern European countries like Slovenia or Croatia and things like that. They must have really beautiful landscapes, and so far I've been missing out. Okay, we can simply say snack calories equals calories sort. Then we'll have to select the first 3. We can... Is there a method, or do we do this with square brackets? Let's see. Ruby array slice. There is a slice function. Good. And how does it work? We'll... slice range of indices, so we'll use 0 to 2 then. Let's verify this assumption. array 1, 2, 3. Array slice 0 to 1. Okay, so 0 to 2. It's inclusive, basically. No, wait, I guess that's index and offset, isn't it? The other way around, the index and then the length that we want to have. Okay, so that's 0, 3 that we need to use. Calories, sort, and then we'll slice it from... oh, we'll have to sort it descending? Or we'll simply use calories length. Well, that's ugly, isn't it? Can we use -2 to... or -3 to minus... something like this? We'll need 3 items, and we'll use -3 to get the last ones, right? Let's try this. We'll make another array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, let's make them random. 3, 2, 4, 1, 5. Then we'll do a sort. Yep. A sort slice. -2, the next 3. That won't work, so we have to do -3, and that's 3 for 5. Okay. So -3, 3. And then we'll have to sum that. We can use collect for that, can't we? Ruby array collect. Ruby sum array. Yeah, we do have a sum function. Awesome. Otherwise, we could use inject to basically apply the plus operator on everything with a base of 0, so we can we get a valid start here. Okay. Brilliant. Let's find out if that's the actual case. So if I do a slice and then I do a sum, that should be 9, 12. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so... we'll say the top 3 elves carry a total of snack calories. And yes, max calories and snack elf aren't necessary anymore. Okay. Yeah, that should do the trick. Let's see how this works. We need to change directories, though. That sounds about right. That's about 3 times what we had before. Let's see if you're right. That's the right answer. You have completed day 1. So just to round this out, what I wanted to do before was keep only a minimal amount of data, which means we only tracked the top 3 elves. So we would have to make sure that our calories array would always be only 3 elements long. And, well, that would have been the almost the exact same logic, but we would trim the array, and we would have to still track the current elf separately. So this would have been quite complex in terms of an algorithm, just to keep the array at a minimal size. While this would have been an interesting puzzle to solve, it's not the way we do software nowadays, I guess. We can spend a few more bytes on the array to track all our elves, and then use a little bit of CPU to sort this array, making this collection or analysis algorithm more complex than it needs to be doesn't really make sense, just to save a little bit of memory, I guess. So I'm happy with this solution, even though it's very basic. It's not very elegant, but it does the job, and that's just done with today's advent of code. Okay. Next, we'll go and optimize our Mastodon cluster for geekdom.social. And before I get into that, I'll take a short break, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. Hello. So, let's get this Mastodon cluster optimized. Let me think. Let's close this. And, oh, let's push the advent of code solutions. Solutions for day 1. That's that. Here we go. Now, I've created a repository for geekdom.social, so we can actually both publish information on this repository and track issues in public. So if there is anything that needs to be done, or if there is an incident, we can actually track things there. And I think I'd like to transfer the current tasks to this repository as well. So let's start with that. Just to give you a short overview, geekdom.social is a Mastodon cluster that I've set up to, first of all, have my own Mastodon instance, and it's amazingly fast. There's no comparison to Mastodon.social, where my previous account was located. But that's not really surprising, because geekdom.social runs on dedicated, on a cluster of dedicated hardware. And we have actually a bare metal database server with lots of cores and RAM. Same goes for the jobs server that does the Sidekiq processing. And then there's a dedicated single web application box at the moment. That's more than enough to serve myself and I guess NH Omega, which are the only accounts on the cluster at the moment. And then again, there's an Nginx running on the web box at the moment, which also runs an NFS server for shared storage. And then there's a cloud load balancer in front of that, so we can easily add more web boxes if we need them. The NFS server I set up after the last stream in which I did all the Mastodon setup, because I realized that the Sidekiq jobs write a lot of the asset files when new posts come in. It's the Sidekiq jobs that write all the avatars and emoji files and things like that. And of course, it's the web application box that needs to serve them to visitors then. So there needs to be a shared storage for asset files, and NFS was simply the quickest solution to get this. Now I'd like to get the cluster into a state where I can actually open registration, which means we'll have to have redundancy working, we'll have to have backups working, and then I'll have to do a little bit of administrative stuff as well to, for example, get a privacy policy and describe our instance rules. Basically, Geekdom, as the name says, is going to be open to all people who are enthusiastic for some kind of topic, be it some tech topic or arts and crafts or cooking or engineering or music, whatever it is. I'd love to have an instance of people who share their experience with what they are a fan of, and yeah, to have a community that basically revels in geekdom. And so I guess we'll do some infrastructure work today, and in the meantime, after this stream, I'm going to do the paperwork with the legal stuff and such. First of all, I'd like to transfer the open tasks to the issue queue here on the geekdom.social repository. And for that, I'll have to get my current task list here on my screen, and then I'm going to transfer that to the issue queue. That way people can actually follow the my progress in setting up the cluster, and later we'll also create issues if there is any operational stuff. I'd like to apply DevOps best practices to this as well, simply because it'll make things easier in the long run. Let me find this. It's a G... Where is the Geekdom project? Oh, it's probably launch Geekdom? No? Well, good thing there is a search function. Setup. Okay. It's S like setup. So let's create a few issues. And we'll also create a few labels then. So we'll need a setup, a central NFS storage. Since I didn't have much time and I didn't want to use a dedicated machine at the time, I simply set up the NFS server on the web box and then have the job box mount the NFS share, which is of course not how you would do it. So we'll set up a central NFS storage that will be shared with both the web box and later web boxes and the job machines as well. The cat was not just shared. Based on Hackydam.io's experience, you'll want to get off of NFS, yep, sooner rather than later if you're going to open registrations. I've heard even just hosting Minio is less problematic. That's the plan. That's actually the plan. First of all, yeah, that's totally sensible, and I, of course, am following Nova, what she's doing over there. And yes, this will only be a temporary thing because having a central NFS server will allow us to, for example, add a second web box, but it'll be replaced with a Minio cluster as soon as possible. It's just a stopgap at the moment, which raises the question, should we even do that? The only reason I'd like to have a central NFS storage is because having the NFS server on the web box of all things seems totally off. That's not how you're supposed to do it, and maybe this is more of an aesthetic issue here, because it's definitely not going to be a long-term or even medium-term solution. Well, let's write it down, and I can always prioritize it down if I like. So yeah, it's an issue, and let's write this down. At the moment, the NFS server has been set up quickly on the only web server where it really doesn't belong. That even though we're going to set up a Minio cluster ASAP, a central NFS server would reflect a proper architecture much better. So that's basically what it's about. Assigned to me, and the label is going to be infrastructure. And let's use this nice dark violet. It reminds me of the SGI Indigos I used to work on. Okay, issue number 1. Another issue. Can I create new issues from there? Apparently not. Only related issues. Okay, then let's go back to issues, new issue. Next issue is going to be setup net data monitoring. I'd like to have as many metrics as possible telling me how my cluster works. So we need monitoring sooner than later, and net data is a nifty solution to that. That's infrastructure 2. Then I'm simply going through my list here. Publish privacy policy before we open registration. We need to properly inform people of their privacy situation on Geekdom. And of course we're going to be fully GDPR compliant. How do we call that? Administrative? Administration is a little bit unspecific, I guess. could call it content because it's web content. Let's call it administrative. Oh, right. And use this carrot orange. I guess it's dark reader that does changes these. So that's a goal. That's almost like in manila envelope. Let's use that. So that's an administrative issue. And it's properly. We need to spell properly. That's that. So, and then there's another administrative issue. Set instance rules. Lay down the law before opening registration. We must make sure people know our rules. So that's that. Then another issue I thought of was that we need to have some kind of moderation process. And I guess that's something we can make transparent on this repository as well. For the sake of transparency, I'd like to make the way we do moderation public. I don't yet know exactly how this is going to look like. I'm still not an experienced Mastodon admin or moderator, but that's going to be important. Okay, and now we'll get back to more infrastructure issues. And this is going to be the first issue that we'll tackle today, and that's tune Sidekiq. At the moment, we're still running the default Sidekiq process, which is the single default Sidekiq process, and thus do not make use of our server resources. And that's an issue. Why run a dedicated bare metal machine if we don't use our CPU cores for Sidekiq? I'll add to that. This means we don't run at optimal performance. Let me. And will eventually run into a bottleneck. I mean, at the moment, with only 2 users, Sidekiq does fine, but it'll become an issue. And in a similar vein, we'll also have to tune Postgres. because that's also the default setup at the moment on an even bigger machine. With the current default configuration, Postgres does not fully use the resources available on the server. Yeah. I guess that's clear. Then there's the issue that Postgres doesn't at the moment use the failover virtual IP address. I got that too late, and so at the moment Mastodon is talking to the database directly using the server name, which will make failover basically impossible. So use virtual IP address for database access. This will allow fast failover once we have the second database node in place. That is, because at the moment we don't have any redundancy here, which is another issue. And we can add that as well. Set up passive database node in order to be able to or you can simply say for high availability we'll need replication to a second database node setup. That's that. Since we are already in the area of disaster recovery, or at least incident resolution, let's add another issue. Setup database backup. Before we invite people in, we need to make sure they're not going to lose all their data. And that reminds me that we also have another kind of redundancy issue in our infrastructure, because at the moment we are running off a single Redis instance running on the database node as well. So the same server that runs Postgres also runs Redis. However, reading the write-ups of several Mastodon admins like Nova or the folks over at chaos.social, we will need two different Redis instances. One that works in persistent mode, where job data gets persisted. So if Redis goes down, we don't lose all currently queued jobs. And the Redis cache that the Mastodon application itself uses needs to be can be ephemeral, and there it's not too bad if we lose data. And I just realized that you can't even see what I'm writing. Sorry about that. So if you notice me doing stuff where it would help you to be able to see what I'm doing, simply kick me in chat. So that means split up Redis instance. In case of an outage, job queues need to be persisted on disk. This requires a second Redis instance. Data stored purely for caching purposes may be lost. This requires a second Redis instance and a configuration change in Mastodon /Sidekiq. Theoretically, we could also use a persistent Redis instance for both, but that's just unnecessary resource usage, because the caching stuff really doesn't need to be persisted across an outage. That's that. And in order to pool our database connections, which at the moment go directly to the database, we'll also need to set up PG Bouncer for a more economic use of database connections. We should use PG Bouncer on all machines that access Postgres. Economical, okay. Infrastructure. Phew, these are quite a few issues. Lots of work to be done. And we'll start with tuning Sidekiq, I guess. Let's assign that to me. Grand. So, yeah, why start with that, even though it's not necessary at the moment? Simply because I'm very curious. So far in my Rails applications, I used active job combined with what's it called? A different queuing system. Don't quite remember the name at the moment, but it simply uses the Postgres database itself to store queue data, to store the jobs, and that's fine. It's the application I'm talking about is far from the same level as Mastodon with lots of users is, and so I'm quite interested in seeing Sidekiq being configured properly and being able to see how different queues perform differently. And that's so it's basically curiosity rather than necessity that I'm going to tackle this task first. It's simply because I'd like to see how Sidekiq works and if it would make sense to use it by default for my Rails applications. Now, I guess we'll go here and let's log into the job machine. So that's how it looks at the moment. We only have a single Sidekiq queue worker running, which has 25 threads. That makes sense. We shouldn't go much above 25 threads because the thread count in Sidekiq has quickly diminishing returns. We should rather split this process up and have different Sidekiq processes serving different queues. And Mastodon does use between 5 and 7 queues, and we'll look these up. And so we'll start different Sidekiq workers for different queues, or at least different queue priorities. Let's see. I guess that's join Mastodon. No, it's not. I think there was join Mastodon.org. Okay. docs.joinmastodon.org. The whole domain is join Mastodon. Okay. So installing, configuring, backing up, that's something we'll have to do later as well. Scaling up. Background processing. So here we have the queues. There are 6 queues at the moment. Okay. And we'll have to split this up. I need to find an example systemd configuration that I can copy from. Question is, will we run a Sidekiq process for each and every queue? Or do we simply have Sidekiq processes that serve quite a few queues at the same time with different priorities? Because I think while Hakiderm runs Sidekiq processes for every single queue, that means that there will be Sidekiq processes that will be running idle, while others could maybe use more resources. And by having shared Sidekiq workers for different queues but with different priorities should be the ideal configuration. Because even if a Sidekiq worker has an empty priority 1 queue, it'll still be able to serve other queues while its priority queue is empty. So let's find out how we need to configure that. We'll only have one scheduler queue, of course, yeah. Otherwise we'll get multiple pseudo cron jobs at the same time, and they'll quickly run into conflicts, I guess. Or at least will cause quite a bit of chaos. The default queues and their priorities are stored in config sidekiq.yaml. It can be overridden by the command line invocation. Okay, let's take a look at config sidekiq.yaml then. So let's go to our toot user live and let's config sidekiq.yaml. Okay, here we have concurrency 5, then there are different queues with a single pull and a single scheduler queue. I guess that's 2 mailers, 4 ingress, 6 push, and 8 default queue workers. And then the workers are configured differently. That's the cron tab, basically, the schedule part here. Okay. Nice. So that's definitely a difference to what I'm using at the moment. I don't think I have a have the option of scheduling jobs. I think what I'm using at the moment only can enqueue jobs triggered by the application. And now I remember its name, it's delay job. And it was nice to have a simple job queuing system to get started with back 10 years ago, and I never had the need to use anything else like that. So that's why I'm very curious to see how Sidekiq can run at scale. Okay, let's try and find Mastodon, Sidekiq, multiple workers, something like that. Here we go. There's a scaling Mastodon blog entry. And that actually might be where I saw the... Nope. No systemd configuration here. Okay. Here we have a blog entry on this. Ah. Here's systemd Mastodon Sidekiq. That's, I guess that's the default configuration where Sidekiq runs the default queue with a concurrency of 75. That's, I think, too much. People are recommending staying between 25 and 50 threads. If that's the thread count, if not the worker count. Okay, here we now have different queues. Yeah, that's the thread count, okay. And for default, we should have more than one process, I guess. Yeah, makes sense. And we can use systemd templates for that. And speaking of... Okay, that's an interesting approach to have a central Mastodon service that groups everything. And then there's the streaming service that's already in place on the web machine. Web frontend, same. I'm more interested in Sidekiq. And here they use template placeholders for both the thread count and the queue name. And that way, we can create as many systemd services in parallel as we want. So that's Mastodon Sidekiq default at dot service. Okay, so we'll have a template for each queue, I guess. If you put this content in a file, Sidekiq queue at service, it will be a template file we can use for creating multiple queue processes with systemd commands. Yeah. Because it'll take the last part here before the @ sign for the -i, no, the -j, %j placeholder. Yeah, and -i usually gets replaced by what comes after the @ when the service is enabled. So in this case here, we have the default template getting used in %j, and the 25 here goes into the number of threads. And we're running default at 25, mailers at 2, scheduler at 2, ingress at 40. Interesting. Push and pull at 40 as well. Okay. With which are all sensible numbers between 25 and 50. Nice. And so say we wanted to increase the number of threads, default service is using from 25 to 40, then we'll disable the @25 and enable the @40. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's exactly what I'd like. Better naming convention like Mastodon Sidekiq NN name. What's the difference? They already use Mastodon Sidekiq number name. Or do they mean instead of single digit numbers, double digit numbers? I think that's okay. All right then. So I guess we can use the existing Sidekiq service file. And simply replace specific values with placeholders. Let's see how this looks. If we go into, let's see, system, there's the Mastodon Sidekiq service. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Mastodon Sidekiq service. Lots of stuff in there. There's the DB pool with 25, which is the same number used here in the exec start. And since we are not specifying a queue, it'll use the sidekiq.yaml file. So once we introduce a queue name, it'll be on us to configure that with the -c and -q options. Okay, do they? Yeah, it's the placeholder is up here as well. And what they do is wanted by mastodon.target. I wonder if that's necessary. If you are running multiple services on the same machine, it probably creates a little bit of more order. We chose to collect all our systemd units into a new target to help group things together logically. Yeah, I guess I don't see the use for us at the moment. Okay. I'll simply go ahead and copy that to Mastodon Sidekiq. In this case, then I like the introduction of numbers here, so we can run multiple processes running on different CPU cores. Sidekiq service to Mastodon Sidekiq 1 default service, right? Where are the file names? Web front, not. Here. Yeah, default at, and then service. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's it. Default. Mailers and push. No, let's first edit this file. Description. Mastodon Sidekiq Q %J. DB pool will be %I. The thread count is again %I, and we'll use Q %J. We'll leave that as it is. Yeah, that's it. So now I can actually copy Mastodon Sidekiq 1 default to Mastodon Sidekiq 1 mailer. Push ingress pull scheduler. Push ingress pull scheduler. And now we can reload the systemd daemon and can start enabling our, well, disabling our current Sidekiq worker and then enabling the separate workers. That's that. So system control disable Mastodon Sidekiq. And also stop it. No Sidekiq left anymore. And now we'll enable default with 25 threads. That's Sidekiq 1 default. And if I use -- now, it'll start this already, right? Which means we should now have a Sidekiq worker with 25 threads. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the description here in PS, but if we do a system control status, Mastodon Sidekiq 1 default at 25. Then we see it's active. Okay. just ignoring the scheduler queue because, yeah, the queue is not enabled. We only have enabled the default queue. Okay. 0 of 25 busy. Yep, I've seen that. Of course, now that I'm going to enable more than one Sidekiq worker, we won't be able to distinguish them in PS. We'll just be able to guess from their thread count, but yeah, it simply would be nice to not only see that it's Sidekiq with 25 threads, but which Sidekiq it would be. But yeah, PS is not built for that. That's expecting a little bit too much. So let us switch to the next queues. That's the mailers queue with 2 threads and the scheduler queue with 2 threads as well. So where's our enable? Scheduler, or was it scheduler with 2 threads. And here it's now actually scheduling these jobs because it's responsible for the scheduler queue. Okay. Mailers with 2 as well. Wait, what? I called it mailer. Okay, maybe we'll have to rename that. Move Mastodon Sidekiq 1 mailer. Is it actually mailers? Well, I guess so. Well then, Mastodon Sidekiq 1 mailers. Which means the enable with mailers should work. Okay. Any job requests, from what I can tell, it's basically whatever the process name is provided, so it's just something Sidekiq would have to provide, like an addition name. Exactly, yep. We already have the scheduler, then ingress with 40, push and pull with 40. So that's the last few. F it, it's going to be ingress 40. Push 40 and pull 40. Which means there should be quite a few Sidekiq processes running now. Nice. 20, okay, 25 for default, 2 and 2 for scheduler, and what was the other one? The mailers? And then 40 for ingress, push and pull. Okay, great. That's that. I guess I should be able to... see this in the Sidekiq administration. Queues. Default ingress mailers. It's actually mailers. Okay, pull, push, and scheduler. Can I see if everything is healthy? I guess I can't. I guess queue size will be the indicator if things are running nicely. Well, I can check the default queue, but it'll only show me jobs that are queued, and at the moment there's just not much happening here. Okay, so we have the processes here, and so we can see there's the default queue, the scheduler, the mailers, ingress, push, and pull. They all are actually running. Yep. 25 threads, 2 threads, 2 threads, and 40 threads each for these. And there's actually an ingress job that's busy. Okay, that's brilliant. So now we have 150 threads in 6 processes. Nice. That'll give us quite a bit of performance, and the machine will still not be maxed out because we do have 12 cores, of which we are only using 6, so we can scale quite a bit. Sidekiq won't be a problem in the near term, I think. Can I? Oh, yes. Yeah, I guess it's mostly the ingress thread and the push and pull thread. Mostly the pull threads, I guess. If by pull, it means that content is pulled from other Mastodon instances. Oh, in the busy list. Let's see, busy list. Yeah, here. Busy thread and what it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it'll list the jobs. At the moment, we don't have any. Okay. Yeah, I'll enjoy looking at this page once the instance is running. I mean, running officially. Oh, that's great. Okay, which means the tune Sidekiq issue has been closed. We've set up separate queue workers. Following this blog post. Credit where credit is due. Well, I guess backup will be another important thing. And we should have a backup even before we create redundancy. I don't expect the database node to completely fail anytime soon. But having a crash and losing data, that might actually happen. So let's find out how to do that. While I've been using MySQL for decades now, I don't have any deep operational experience with Postgres, and that includes backup. Backing up a Postgres SQL is at risk of data corruption from power cuts, hard disk drive failure, and botched schema migration. For that reason, occasionally making a backup with pgdump or pgdump all is recommended. For high availability setups, it's possible to use hot streaming replication to have a second PostgreSQL server with always up-to-date data, ready to be switched over if the other server goes down, which still isn't backup. Redundancy is not backup. So we'll need this anyway. So just PG dump? Hmm. Is it because you don't have a proper mechanical keyboard in Atomica? Okay, I mean, not that I would complain that PG dump isn't complex enough or something like that, but is PG dump? Does that create consistent backups? Let's find out. PostgreSQL backup. Backup and restore PostgreSQL documentation. Here's PG dump and PG dump all. I guess with PG dump I'll dump a single database, and with PG dump all it'll dump all available databases. That's my assumption so far. Okay, nothing that stands out here. Let me see what this is. I'm curious. This website keeps popping up for me. What is edu CBA? Who are you? That's data science. I'm not interested in data science. Asia's largest online learning platform. Okay. Vouchers. An initiative by IIT-IIM graduates. Edu CBA is a leading global provider. Okay. Interesting. They haven't been around for long, have they? And still they have lots of content, so they must pay people to create all this content. Mm-hmm. 5,000 courses and 500 learning paths. That's impressive. Okay. Now, PostgreSQL tutorial, PG dump, username, database name, and then, okay. I guess point-in-time recovery is what I'm looking for, isn't it? PG dump all uses a specific user. If we do that with the Postgres user, I guess we have super user access and should be able to dump everything, and it'll be a logical SQL file. Okay. So that's the equivalent to my SQL dump, which creates big backup files and might be consistent. We'll have to look that up. If this only dumps and doesn't take into account that related tables might be modified during the backup. So let's take a look at the actual Postgres documentation here. The dumps produced by pgdump are relative to template 0. This means that any languages, procedures added via template 1 will also be dumped by pgdump. As a result, when restoring, if you are using a customized template 1, you must create the empty database from template 0, as in the example above. After restoring a backup, it is wise to run analyze on each database so the query optimizer would use for statistics. Okay, that's just a performance measure then, I guess. pgdump is a regular client application, albeit a particularly clever one. Okay, this means that you can perform this backup procedure from any remote host that has access to the database. Remember that pgdump does not operate with special permissions. In particular, it must have read access to all tables that you want to back up. So in order to back up the entire database, you almost always have to run it as a database super user. No, not a problem. To specify which database server pgdump should contact. Yeah, that's okay. Since it's a logical dump, it can generally be reloaded into newer versions of PostgreSQL because it's simply SQL. Whereas file-level backups and continuous archiving are both extremely server version specific. Yeah, that's I can see that. pgdump is also the only method that will work when transferring a database to a different machine architecture. Yeah, okay, makes sense. Because it's not binary. Dumps created by pgdump are internally consistent, meaning the dump represents a snapshot of the database at the time pgdump began running. pgdump does not block other operations in a database while it's working. Brilliant. Exceptions are those operations that need to operate with an exclusive lock, such as most forms of alter table, which we are almost never going to run because Mastodon doesn't do that when it's running. It's just when we do software updates, and for software updates we can use maintenance windows to shut down access and things like that. So while an alter table might block a backup, it might block a backup, we are almost never going to run a backup while we are never going to run a backup while alter table is running. We'll probably do a backup before we run a database migration where an alter table might happen, but not during. So that should be okay. Let's take a look at stream health. It's still 100%, which is nice. I do love Owncast. 0 recent client playback warnings. How nice. Okay. I guess we could start using by using pgdump. And is pgdump all the same as running pgdump on each database separately? pgdump dumps only a single database at a time and does not dump information about roles or table spaces. To support convenient dumping of the entire contents of a database cluster, the pgdump all program is provided. pgdump all backs up each database in a given cluster and also preserves cluster-wide data such as role and table space definitions. So we'll simply do pgdump all into dump file and can read from this dump file and restore stuff. However, of course, restoring stuff in a more targeted way might prove tricky, but yeah, still, that's not a concern, I think, in terms of operating Mastodon. There aren't people working with single tables and requiring us to restore a single table or something like that, as we do in our hosting platform. Mm-hmm. pgdump all works by emitting commands to recreate roles, table spaces, and empty databases, then invoking pgdump for each database. Okay, that's exactly what we need, I guess. At least for the time being. Later we might switch to a point-in-time recovery backup, but I guess this backup is better than no backup at all. So how do we run this? I guess we'll run it as the Postgres user. Let's see, pgdump. Oh, here, handling large databases. Some operations maximum file size limits. Okay, I can see. So we could do a gzip, okay, or use split to create a bunch of files. Mm-hmm. And still filter it through gzip. Brilliant. Okay. So for the time being, we'll use pgdump all as the Postgres user, I think. Let's give this a try. Here we go. So that's going to happen on the database node. So let's root at db1a.fediverse.net. And if I do a pgdump all -u Postgres, and I guess it doesn't matter where we write it at the moment, or does it? It doesn't. I'll add a cloud-based volume to this machine so we don't run into space issues. But for the time being, we can simply dump it to... where are we going to store that? To var. That's the database. I think we're going to write to volley PostgreSQL backup for the time being. And let's take a look at the dump all mon page. I think there's a -u switch for the user, isn't there? Yep, up there. Username to connect as. So if I do a dump all -u Postgres, and we write to that. Let's see what happens. Peer authentication failed for user Postgres. Yeah, I see. So we, instead of doing that, we'll do a sudo -u Postgres, and then we'll do the pgdump all and write that to the dump file. Which is not going to be... It's not going to work because pgdump all will not... Well, this will create the dump file as the root user, and which means that the Postgres user will probably not be able to write into this file. So what we have to do instead is use -c and then make this run as the Postgres user, I think. No? What else? User, and then the command. So no C, just this. Thought so, that's not going to work either. Can I simply use a file name as an argument? -f, send output to the specified file. That's just output though. Where can I write my dump information? Okay, let's try without this, but I'm pretty sure it'll break. Nope. No, it did work. Interesting. Ah, of course, of course. I'm stupid. Yeah. The PG dump all simply writes to standard out. And that's no problem. And then it's the root user here that writes the output to the redirected file. Of course it'll work. Okay, so that's brilliant. And that's already 125 megabytes of dump data. Yeah, okay. I guess we can simply set up a cron job that does this backup sometime at night, every day. Are we going to keep multiple files? If we use multiple files, we'll have to clean them up. Having just one dump from last night should be already a good improvement. So I'll remove that. No, let's keep that here. And we don't need the date command then. So all we have to do is run this at a specific time. So, database backup. We run this ten minutes after 3 o'clock every day. And we're going to run sudo -u postgres pg dump all greater var lib postgresql backup dump.sql. Don't even need to gzip that, do we? Well, over time we'll probably should. Yeah, okay, let's do this then. Gzip. And run this to dumpsql.gz. Let's make sure this works as intended. This took a little bit longer, didn't it? The compression does add a little bit of time. But, yeah, we are an order of magnitude. Smaller. And let's make sure this works. Am I going to expose anything in here? Well, let's make sure I don't. Yeah, there are passwords. Okay. At least password hashes. So yeah, there's the SQL. Ooh. There are stored procedures, things like that. Okay. No, that's that. I'm happy about that. Let's make sure we don't have stuff lying around that's not necessary. Now, of course, this is very basic in terms of backup. Having a generational backup would probably be better. Not sure if it's required in our current use case, but it'll probably be better. So what I'm going to do is close this with a basic nightly backup using pg dump all is implemented. However, I'll create a new issue. Setup. A more sophisticated database backup. The backup setup in, I think that was number 10. Let's see, was it number 10? Yep. Doesn't keep older backups and won't be usable for a point-in-time recovery. We should investigate if we need a more sophisticated backup once the full DB cluster is in place. Because now I think redundancy is more important than having a very sophisticated backup. I'd rather survive a database outage and be able to restore operation quickly than being able to restore last week's backup or something like that. I don't imagine I'll ever need that. But so we'll make this I thought we could make it dependent on a different backup, but that might be a GitLab feature that's not available to me at the moment. There's no field for issue dependencies. So the priority of this issue is lower than number 9. So let's do it in text form. So setting up a passive DB node that can serve as a failover target is more important. However, that's something that we'll do another time. I need to take care of a few other things before the day's over. So let's wrap things up at this point. We can still chat a little bit. I'm not going to run away right away, but I guess it's time to remind everyone. If you... oh, I need to change that. I'm not GWS at Mastodon Social anymore. So let me quickly take care of that. That's that. So here's my correction. GWS at geekdom.social, of course. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask, if you think that I missed something, or if there's anything that you'd like to share, if you have any feedback, pop it into chat. And otherwise, I'll be back probably on next Tuesday. Normally I try to be online Tuesday afternoons and Thursday afternoons. I don't always manage to do that, but let's plan for next Tuesday, which is going to be another Ruby Tuesday. And I'm also... I have to think tonight about how to deal with Advent of Code. Maybe I'll do a little stream, but not on the weekends, I guess. So I'll probably push everything to the Git repository, and I'll post the link to the Git repository on my Mastodon account. So if you'd like to follow my Ruby solutions for Advent of Code, you'll find them in the GitLab repository. And don't forget to follow this stream. You can do this right with the follow button, and you'll get a notification on your Mastodon account once I go online. Other than that, as always, it's been a lot of fun today, and thank you for stopping by. Thank you for helping me or giving your opinion. Thanks for sharing the stream and for all your support. I'd love to see you soon, and until then, take care.